Gave his life for Mark again. Second verse is Jesus at Calvary did know his love for sinners for show. Okay? Okay, let's see now if I can get started here. Oh yeah, Tim could do our songs.
Tim can help you.
Okay. Oh, how he
loves you and me. Oh, how he loves you and me. He gave his life. What more could he give? Oh, how he loves you. Oh, how he loves me. Oh, how he loves you and me. Jesus to Calvary did go. His love for sinners to show. What he did there brought hope from despair. Oh, how he loves you. Oh, how he loves me. Oh, how he loves you and me.
And then praise the Lord to Elias, okay?
Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, praise the Lord, hallelujah. Praise the Lord.
He was on my junior high volleyball team, and they had good standards with the kids, and they kept real tight rein on them and everything else. But they lived in total white knuckle fear of 13. But when she hit 13, they just lived in white knuckle fear. Their solution was, and this was the nicest little gal who also had a good testimony for the Lord, cute beyond words, sweet, etc. You know what their solution was? The day she turned 13, they took every single rule off. And from that day forward, she went down to the sewer. She hit the sewer. Well, that's stupid. What was the difference in the girl the day before she turned 13 and the day she did turn 13? Excuse me. None. There was none. All they needed to do was follow the plan and the standards that God had led them to all the way along. They bought in. They bought into stages of life. Now, buy into growth and development, emotionally, psychologically, physically, all of those. You know, hey, if it's 9 months and it's sitting on my lap and can't be mobile, that's one thing. The minute it's on the floor and mobile, it's a whole new ball game. But you're ready. You got a plan. You got a brain, and you're ready, you know, for a little different application of no, etc., etc., etc. Lessons, practical lessons. Last night in our living room there was a 4.5-year-old, 1.5-year-old, and almost a 2-year-old. Talk about teaching some of these concepts. Remember last week what we said about being fair? The first thing you have to teach your kids about being fair is
Life's not fair.
life's not fair. You have to teach a negative side. Well, what is it when you teach your kids to share? You have one little child. He has all the toys. And then you make the mistake, not the mistake, of bringing a second child into that home. Well, those toys have always been mine. So, you know, Finding Nemo comes out all over the place. Mine. You know, here's Nemo over here. Well, you know, watching these kids last night, we had one basket of toys left that we keep all the time for when they come. And of course, they were everywhere. Heather and Jan, you didn't dare get up and walk in your stocking feet, or you were penetrated with plastic people. Clearly, right?
They put them away.
Do you want to tell the story? They did. Two of them put them away. Two of them put them away.
The little ones.
The 1.5 of the 2 put them away. And the other one came out of the family who has their mother trained, but her mother wasn't there, and she still didn't put them away. But it's a real dynamic to watch them down there with this one little basket of toys. Share is quite a concept when you introduce that second child, because all that child has known is mine. Not in a negative way. It is mine. You have given that to me for my birthday. You have given that to me for Christmas, and it is mine. What do you mean my little brother wants to play with that? That is mine. And so you have to teach share. Well, now there's a challenge and a half.
You can share. You gave me this. What do you mean share? You said it was mine. So two concepts you have to start in reverse: fair and share. It isn't. But it's just really interesting. Those are all side bits. But I love to sit back. I know where I was going with this. When the child, there are different stages of growth and development. That's what I want you to concentrate on, not stages that tells you your 2-year-old is going to be terrible. I'm sorry, that's hogwash. That's the world's garbage. That's psychological jibber jabber from somebody that hasn't been in the Word. You've got your plan in place. You know what discipline is. You can, 2s can be okay. Are they going to be challenging? Well, of course. So we're 3s, 4s, 5s, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, and there will always be something new because they're growing, and they're thinking more than they did. That doesn't happen until about 47, but they're thinking more than they did. But that little child becomes mobile. Well, that happens long before too, doesn't it? Now, in our house, somebody owns a lot of little knick-knacks. And they are everywhere. And if you come to my house with your kids, I'm going to watch you because we don't move them. Somebody said something like that. I think it was one of my grandkids, fortunately. I wouldn't treat you this way, but I would my grandkids. Said something like, you need to move those things, Grandpa. I said, I didn't move them for my 5, and I'm sure not moving them for yours. You need your kids, teach your kids to leave them alone. I wouldn't do that to you. I would just sit back and watch you and laugh. I wouldn't even say a word. But if you haven't taught your child to leave things alone, this is how we keep company away from the house. See, I tell them the story, nobody wants to come over. Tucker would be into everything. But the important thing about this is don't buy into the psychological myths. Buy into the fact that yes, your child is going to grow, they are going to change, there are going to be new things all the time, and be prepared for that. And your system of discipline that you started with at 1 will work all the way through as you adapt it and adjust it to growth and development. You know what I mean? Terrible 2s? Don't buy into stages. Terrible 2s. Paddle feels the same at 2. I'm sorry, I better rephrase that word. I said the paddle feels the same at 2 as it does at 10 or 14 if you do it. Just a sidebar, just a thought.
Adjust for no diapers.
Huh?
You have to adjust for no diaper.
You do? All right. Now take your notes. Or Beverly's going to win this thing. Beverly's going to win this thing. The Proverbs, we're going to spend the rest of the time this morning in Proverbs and a little bit next week. Proverbs, we started to touch it a little bit last week. Unbelievable. Do you realize that Proverbs is a book that you could take onto a secular college campus and teach as an ethics course? You could teach it as a morals course. You could teach this to unsaved people. Obviously, you teach it to saved people that do more good. But it is so practical in godly wisdom. Now, they wouldn't know it was godly originally until you introduced it that way, somewhere along the line. But this book is so full of just plain wisdom. And as Heather said last week, godly wisdom. And as Solomon put it together, wrote some, gathered some, and by inspiration they included it in scripture, etc., that it is just a fantastic book. It works for relationship, it works for business, it has so many things. Now we listed, and this is from chapter 1, verses 2, 3, and 4, these 10 things, they're the 10 basic topics that all of the subjects in the book come out of. Now look at the 10, and we're not going to spend a lot of time here. Everything that's in here is basically about wisdom, instruction, perception / insight, understanding, justice, judgment, equity, subtlety, knowledge, and discretion. A few comments about those. Now, this is where you want your child to be, have some knowledge of all of these, or some working knowledge of these, when they go out your front door.
you're not going to start teaching them about perception and insight at 2 in a big format. You're going to have little tiny things. Justice is on there, a penalty that is fair. Well, you won't introduce it as the subject. You won't say to your 2-year-old, we're going to have a seminar on justice today. But you may have a seminar on justice today. You won't use that word with the 2, but you'll have some small thing that will come up where justice will need to be. But this will be a progression of things through, let's go 0 to 18. Say there is a way they're going to leave home and you get rid of them. I mean, they leave voluntarily. And you want them to have, you definitely want them to have wisdom, the ability to make sound decisions. You're going to want wisdom in some of their lives long before 18, right? Long before that. Just hinted at some of these teenage things that come up. You know, you want them to have some wisdom. And wisdom is always based on knowledge. And knowledge is things that are taught, but in your case, being believers, you want it always to revolve around that word that begins with T. Class? Louder? Truth. Yeah, the truth. You want your kids to have knowledge based on truth. And so as you live with them and as you talk to them and as you instruct, you're always pointing them towards the truth as they build up knowledge. It's not always Bible truth. It's truth about life itself. The truth about, you have to tell them the truth about fairness. You have to tell them, because pretty soon at 5, they're going to be out the door off school and they will discover all kinds of unfairness, at least as they observe the world. And you'll have seminars in fairness often that way. And so these are the basic 10 subjects that he is talking about in the whole book of Proverbs. Now, we're taking just a peek, just a minute peek at this book, and we're looking at it in terms of child training, okay? But it's not a book just written for children. I could go home this afternoon and sit down in my chair, which I will, won't get up till I go to bed. I had to sit down, and if I took a notebook and I just started looking at Proverbs and thought, the things I need right now as a 79-year-old, I would have a big list when I get done. I would. There's so much in here for Larry still. If I did it next year, and the next year, and the next year, yeah, it would be never ending. So let's don't think of it as a book for children that way, but we're taking a little snippet. We're taking a little snippet. There are no age groups. Now, one thing you should notice about Proverbs, especially the first, let's just say, 8 chapters, are written in a parental format. Because if you look to about, I don't know, it's about verse 8 or something like that, he will say, my son. He will say, my son. It's written in a format of a parent, and in that case, a father and a son, but take it bigger than that, please. Take it as a parent and a child, okay, in a daily life situation of giving instructions for living. And then it's in a spiritual format where godly truth can be added to whatever you're teaching them, if it's appropriate, if it's a spiritual matter, that way. And then if you go to chapter 2, verse 1, it says, my son. Chapter 3, verse 1, it says, my son. 4:1 says, my son. 5:1 says, my son. 6:1, 7:1, 8:1, they all say, my son. And so the first part of this is very, very apropos. Yet on the other hand, you go over in chapter 22, and it will tell you to watch your friends. Watch who you're running around with. Well, what age group is that appropriate for? Don't get trapped here. Sherry? Thank you. Everyone. But really, it's pretty well needed early on. Watch your friends. We're going to see that again in a few moments. So, here are some of these things. Look at number 8. Somewhere, depending on what version you're reading, it talks about subtlety, and in there might be a phrase in your version of the Bible that refers to the simple. To the simple, it might, I don't know what you have, but I have 2 that have it and 1 that doesn't, as I read through my version. The term simple in here
is not talking about a person who lacks in any way intellectually, okay? It's not talking about someone who's a little bit short intellectually. It's talking about, literally taking it apart, it's talking about big body, small mind. Child grows faster physically than they do. Mentally? I can't. Mentally, thank you. I left him home today, or it's her day to work. Talks about that big body and the mind that hasn't caught up to it yet to make strong, mental, intellectual, wise decisions. You should know that. You gotta run all over your house, right? The days, and I shared this before, the days my dad just, I remember so many things about my dad, but this is the one that I remember the most. And he was always looking right at me when he did this. And then he would make that statement I shared with you before, if I could just put my head on your shoulders for 5 minutes. Well, that's what he was saying. Yeah, you're a big guy on the football field and on the track, but you make the dumbest, immature decisions I've ever seen in my life. I fit that perfect. I was the simple. And all of us started there, and your children start there, you know. They're scattered, they don't think well, and so we work through it with them that way. So these are the 10 basic subjects, and they are found in verses 2, 3, and 4, that first chapter. And then he jumps right in, and we're going to turn to the second page, and that's where we have this pondering the Proverbs. And we're going to go, if you take your Bible, to go to Proverbs 1. The time we have left, as I finish on time, whenever I finish it's on time, so there's no wastage of words. Right? You always rig these things up. See, when you get old and you get wise, you use it for devious purposes. All right? And he starts right away with the instruction and the wisdom that way. So we looked at the 10 things that come out of the verses, but look at verse 5. What does he say about the wise? How are they going to become that way? How are they going to get there? Sherry? Ears. Yeah, it says hearing, listening. Now, who is the world's worst listener that you know? A little louder, please.
You.
Yeah. And she is correct. Always been a poor listener. Anybody else want to join me on that? Anybody else? Thank you very much.
I've come to a place where I think all men are poor listeners.
Well, you can be dismissed from class. But you know where the office is. Well, I'd say if we put it on a comparative basis, we probably find more men are. I am a very, very poor listener. And that's why, that's why the and get their eyes off the ceiling, right? That's why, the focus when we're really trying to talk to the kids, get those eyeball to eyeball, to try to speak through their eyes to the heart, so that they can hear what we're saying, not just audible noise. It's hearing. And so working with your kids to hear. This is why I suggested to you that when you have an instruction, make them repeat it back to you. Now tell me what Mommy said you were supposed to do. Repeat that instruction back. That's a test on their hearing. Now we can't tear all these verses apart, but he starts right on. This is before he even says in verse 8, my son, but he's already given instruction here. And he says in verse 5 there, you listen and then you do what else in that verse? What do you see? If you're listening, you'll be able to get good guidance and counseling. Yeah, you listen to good counsel. Any of you ever had experiences in your life where you didn't bother to get good counsel? Or ignore good counsel? Oh man, it's a disastrous, it's a train wreck, isn't it? Okay, and we want our children to get good counsel. And of course, the first good counsel has to come from you. has to come from you. They need to listen. And then where do you begin? In verse 7. Gotta slow down on these first ones. Where do you begin with that instruction and counsel to your kids? What do you teach them? The fear of the Lord. Well, now, that's really gonna go over big with my person in the terrible twos. All right, we're going to teach you about the fear of the Lord today. Well, really? How you gonna do this? How do you think we introduce this? We can't introduce it to a toddler as the fear of the Lord. But what do?
Teach them fear of mom and dad.
Who stands in place of the Lord? That's excellent. Teach them fear of mom and dad.
Teach them to respect the Bible.
Teach them to respect the Bible. If it's the fear of the Lord, you better be talking about who in your home? The Lord. You better be talking about the Lord. I'm not going to turn to this for time's sake because I have to win now. The pressure's on. Okay, Deuteronomy 6. What did he say to the Israelites about their home, their children, and the commandments? While you're walking, while you're sitting, and everything else, you are talking about the Lord. In other words, your kids should grow up knowing that the Lord is just a common person, not a common person, I don't want to say that, I'm sorry. He's a common part of conversation, that's what I want. He's part of the family, that's great, I like that better than mine. But he's, you can't start with the toddler teaching the fear of the Lord, but you introduce it by making sure the Lord is a common part of the conversation, a part of the family, and then as you go on, you should share your spiritual experiences. Your kids should know some of the prayer requests you are praying for. And they should see and hear some of the answers. And they should know that the job Daddy has is a job you prayed for long ago, and God gave that to you, and that's what pays the bills, and that's why you're eating. And who gets the credit? Daddy? No, the Lord does. Because the Lord can take it away tomorrow, that way. So when he starts with this instruction with the fear of the Lord, you can't start with a big theological discussion on the fear of the Lord. I haven't even grasped that all yet, what that means. And I still have to listen to my pastors when they talk about it, and I get something out of that. So that's what we got. He's going with the instruction there. I am just pulling out a few tidbits here for things from children. Verse 8, obviously, and somebody already had it, right here, Amanda had it. Verse 8, he says, Hear my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching. Your mother and father. You remember only two obligations for children. Obey your parents and honor your parents. It's only two in the Bible. It's only two obligations kids have. Obey your parents and honor your parents. Well, here's honor your parents right here. Listen to their instruction. And then if they listen to your instruction, you got to make sure that instruction is carried out. And to make sure it's carried out, remember, accountability. You have to inspect. What you expect, you inspect. So it all begins to fit together here that way. And verses 9 through 15, we won't read 9 through 15, but you know what 9 through 15 is? Especially, look at 10 where it says, if sinners entice you. 9 to 15 is your first conversation about picking friends. Who you run with. The crowd you run with. The crowd you run with. I lived in LaGrange for 7 years. David knows what it's like because he lived there too. And as our pastor used to say there's not much exciting that goes on in LaGrange, but what you hear makes up for it. Right? It's pretty close, right, Dave? Yep. And so there weren't many secrets. In LaGrange. And one night, down by the public school there, they had some very nice decorative globes, and those globe lights were all on at night. And one morning they all appeared shot up. They weren't there anymore. And we'll just suffice it to say that some of the young men didn't exercise good judgment. But there was one young man in the car that didn't go out of the car to do the shooting. But everybody in the deal got the same penalty. And they call it an accomplice.
You were there. You were there. You didn't speak up. You didn't say anything. You know, that way. Pick your company. You know, and I know that's why his parents talked him out afterwards. You picked that company. You ran with that company, and you suffered with that company. You know, you got the same penalty. He said, I didn't shoot on any lights. You were with them. Your being with them showed that you condoned what they did. You were running with the pack. So he starts right away on picking your friends that way. Chapter 2, just want to get just something out of the very first part of the chapter here, and it has to do with the Bible. And what part, how important is the Bible going to be in your home? And in verse 1, 2, 3, 4, in there, it talks about receiving the words, after my son in verse 1, receiving the words, treasuring them, being attentive to them, listening to them, calling out for insight, seeking them like silver, searching for them, hiding them in there. Incidentally, how do you hide the Word of God in your heart? The best way? Memorize it. Memorize it. When we come to the little part where I'll get on my soapbox about education, there were two things we did to prepare our kids for school. One of them was books. We dumped books in their crib. So when they woke up in the morning, they could play with books. You know, they were reading the encyclopedia at 6 months. They just had books in their hands. All it did was accustom them to having books in their hands. But books, and as soon as anything reasonable with a word or letters came up, they all had library cards. And I know then we dumped them at the library. And 3 weeks later, we went back and picked them up. Had a nice vacation with them. But the other thing we did was enroll them in a program called BMA, Bible Memory Association. And I don't know, it probably, let's just say it ran about 12 straight weeks. And they had a passel of verses to memorize every week. I know Jeanine was our oldest, and she was probably only in the 6th grade, and she had 12 verses a week she had to say and recite to a hearer, you know. That was a lot, but we got them in books and got them reading, and when they got to school wasn't hard. They've been so used to it that way. But see, in his instruction here, he comes back to you. How important is the Word of God going to be? Guess where they're going to learn how important the Word of God is going to be? Where are they going to learn that? Class? At home. At home. They're going to learn that at home. Yeah. It's like this. Where are they going to learn how important this is? From you. They'll learn that at home. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. If you look at 5 and 6, which is one we all know, what's the big thing there? Why do they need this? God's going to give them direction. God is going to give them direction. And you can teach them begin a prayer life here. Mommy, what should you do? Well, let's start praying about this and see what God wants us to do. That direction. And then in verse 13, what's the result of being wise? Happiness and blessing. You want to be happy? Happiness and blessing. Happiness and blessing. Verse 27. It's a good principle in life. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do so. Do good to other people. Do good to other people. Right? You don't want your kids to learn that? Yes, you do. You're going to be at a church like this when there are opportunities to do good to people. Our list of sick people and hurting people and ailing people and shut-in people grows. It does not diminish. It grows and grows and grows. And I have tons of examples sitting in front of me of you people who know how to step up and help other people. And you better raise the next generation because you're all going to die and pass off, and somebody else has got to step up and do it. Okay? And, okay, that was 27 and 28. 28. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again tomorrow, I'll give it to you, when you have it with you right now. Meet your obligations. Make sure your word is good. What you say you're going to do, do. There's a good teaching for you, child. And then 35 in that same chapter, 35. The wise will inherit honor, but fools get disgrace. Remember, anger is the tool of fools. We're going to bring that back in next week when we talk about something that uses a paddle. Anger is the tool of fools. All right? And teach your kids the same things. you're foolish, you'll be disgraced in the end. Chapter 4, what's the best thing to get? Verses 5 and 7, get wisdom, get wisdom. Incidentally, and we're not going off on this one because the only one in here with the answer is Amanda, and she'd have to teach it. In the Bible, wisdom has a gender assigned. What is it? Female. Why? All men just shut up. I don't know why. All my supposition says they're probably wiser. It's interesting. You Proverbs go through it. She. The reference is always the wisdom is a she. Husbands, listen to your wife. It's at 8:30, David. Listen to your wife. On Friday mornings, 8:30.
Yeah.
Not 10:30 like you thought you heard. 8:30. Okay, you got that?
See, I told you that men don't listen.
I know. Men don't listen. Yeah. Chapter 4, verse 14. Verse 14. Here's another one about friends. 4:14. Watch your friends. Watch your friends. Do not enter the path of the wicked. Do not walk in the way of the evil ones. This is going to be a big one. As your kid goes off to high school, they want some friends to fit in with, and you are going to have to know an awful lot about those people. I'm sorry, you're going to have to be known as the stupid parent who's always got their nose in checking out people. You better do it. If that's the title you get, hooray! That's what I want you to have. You better know who your children are running around with, and you better know even more about their parents because they're getting their values from their parents. You better know. You better know. Verse 23 of chapter 4 is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. I always like it out of my KJV. I'll read it out of ESV. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life. In KJV, it's like, guard your heart with all diligence. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it, your heart, are all the issues of life. All the issues of life. In your heart. Oh yeah. I wrote down here by guard your heart on your notes. Your emotions, your affections, your passions, your mind, your intellect, your conscience, your will. All of these things make up your heart. We're not talking about the blood pumping organ. Talking about these things that are the heart of you, the heart of your child, and you must guard the heart. Only 2 ways into the heart of your child. What are they? Eyes and ears. Eye gate, ear gate. There are only 2 ways, and you better be the ones standing guard on the gates. What goes in? Garbage in. Garbage out. Good stuff in. Lord. All right. This is a very, very important verse for your children. Because it's very, very important. I have failed on this verse in my life as an adult and paid horrible times for it. All right. All right. That's 4. Let's look at just a couple more things here. Okay, this is. You two are not nice. You two are going to end up in the principal's office. We have 2 bad students up here, Anna. You be the principal today. I'm going to send these 2 down. Because I don't spank girls. With boys, I wail the tar on them.
You gotta catch me first.
All right, chapter 5. And they think they're the epitome of wisdom because they're female. They rub it out. So chapter 5, all I'll mention to you is this is one, and of course you're all going to have to face this one sooner or later. You better in your home. It's a strong warning against sexual immorality. Chapter 7 is the same. Both of these chapters. And in verse 9, it talks about what it'll cost you, the penalty for straying. It'll cost you your health, it'll cost you your wealth, it'll cost you your strength, it'll cost you honor. May I bring up a name? Does anybody know who Robert Kraft is? Yep. I knew you'd know. Robert Kraft. Well, first of all, he's at a minimum a millionaire. At a minimum millionaire, okay? He is a widow millionaire. He owns the New England Patriots. No, the New England Patriots. And this week was caught soliciting a prostitute. And it'll cost him. It'll cost him severely. But you know, he can stand probably
financial part of it. But already, you know, what's in the news on this guy? You know, because anytime you interview him, Bob Kraft he comes across pretty good, you know, and everything like that. Immorality that will cost you your health, your wealth, your strength, your honor, etc., etc. And in chapter 5, it talks about sticking with your one and only wife. Here's a good one, though, in chapter 5 for your children. Your children may be too young for the adult content for a couple of years. But how about verse 21? How about verse 21? Here's a good one for children. Here's a good one for adults. Kind of picking on poor little kids today. A man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord. A man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord. In chapter 9, help the wise to be wiser. Your kids ought to be the kind that whoever their friends are, they're trying to elevate their kids, lift them up. And who's ever in your circle, lift them up. You should always marry someone who's stronger than you spiritually. Think about that concept. You should always marry someone who's stronger than you spiritually. What do you mean, the man or the woman? Yes. You should always marry someone stronger than you spiritually. This one pulls up, this one pulls up, this one pulls up, this one pulls up. Yeah, right. Man or woman, all right? Chapter 10 hatred causes trouble. Don't refuse correction. Hold your unkind words back, etc., etc. That is such a tiny snippet of Proverbs. But next week, it's not on your, I don't think it's on yours. Next week we'll look at a verse in there, Proverbs, that says, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but, stop smirking, but a rod of correction will drive it from him. So if you two get sent to the principal's office, I'm getting her a rod. Thank you, people. I don't have anything else to say. I'm done.